forward it to 3 people. If you love Jesus, forward it to 5 people. If you don't forward it, it means that you are not a lover of Jesus Christ. Even the unbelievers, the Gentiles, the people who don't believe in God, to sell, they put something Christian in the message so that it can sell. I was going through YouTube one time and I saw one ad. On YouTube there are so many ads. This particular ad was talking about, it said Nigerian Bible. I think the person was using pidgin. I don't know if I'm very accurate, if you have seen that ad also. It said Nigerian Bible. The person was using pidgin. Why? You feel like Nigerians are very religious, and they feel like if they push something like that, people will be very much interested. Actually, I think in Nigeria, the population in comparison to developed nations, the people who profess to not to know God, who profess that there is no God, or the rate or the number of atheists that we have in this country is much more reduced. In fact, cannot be compared to what we have outside Nigeria. It is true. Maybe somebody should help us to do that research. But I believe that to a great extent, especially in our nation, Nigeria, we have never been so religious as now. And what God is doing is not hidden anymore. Everybody just wants to see the mighty things that God is doing. Everybody wants to talk about it. In our schools today, in fact, they now accept, Christian fellowships. They accept many things that are going on in the name of God. That's to show that many things are happening that never happened before. And Christianity is gaining widespread acceptance in our nation today. But however, in spite of the fact that is happening, in fact, in spite of the fact that there is a lot of noise about what God is doing, right? God has a goal in mind. Lawrence Oyo was the one that sang, "We'll burn the world. We will shift the culture," right? We'll shift the culture, and that's very true. And in fact, unbelievers sing the song too. And there's a lot of fad, and Christian music like that are becoming more fashionable. All right. In spite of that noise, I want you to know that God is doing something definite. Something definite. God brings a wave of revival. The revival is not the end in itself. The revival is not a goal in itself. It's good to celebrate, but I want us to know that God is building a house. And it's actually the report of God that matters more. Christianity is not politics. Are we here? In politics, it's about the numbers. It's about the numbers. The person who has the higher number is the winner. But Christianity, the more people make noise does not mean that God is approving of it. Or the more people make noise about a thing, does not mean that God's approval is there and God's stamp is on it. Christianity is not politics. We might have many people making noises, just like these people in Ezra chapter 3. We have two groups of people making noise in Ezra chapter 3. There was a noise of weeping and a noise of joy. But the people that were joyful, we see how God responds in the book of Haggai. He says, this house, in comparison, is it not nothing in your eyes? Although it's a marvelous thing that God is doing. It's a marvelous thing. It's a wonderful thing. Good to be celebrated about. Good to celebrate. But God by himself says, it's nothing. And sometimes we want to celebrate what God is doing. There's a difference between what God is doing and, the heart of God or the goal of God. He's doing many things, but he had a goal in mind. God help me. So, in the book of, I think Philippians chapter 2 or 3. I think chapter 3. Please help us with Philippians chapter 3. Philippians chapter 3. Verse 13 to 14. Brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth unto those things which are before. 14. I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. I press toward the mark. There is a mark. That's what I'm trying to say. Even though God does many things, there's a mark. There's a particular place he wants to take us to. As a church, as an individual, as a family, there's a mark, a particular place he wants to take us to. Even though he does many beautiful things in the way, for which many people sit back and begin to rejoice and to celebrate about, not being mindful of the fact that that's just part of the doings of God. There's a particular place, there's a particular mark, there's a particular goal that God has in mind. And so we see God speaking through Haggai to the people. He says, that's just nothing in comparison. That's not where I'm going to. Actually, if we put ourselves in their shoes, we would understand why they are celebrating.